Hello there, and welcome to the Construction Revolution podcast. My name is Ali Alizadeh, and here on the show we explore the latest trends, technologies, people, and organizations that are revolutionizing or disrupting the construction industry and are changing the way the industry will look like tomorrow. Today on the show, I'm speaking with Daniel Pifko, the VP North America at WakeCap. WakeCap offers an industrial IoT solution designed to improve safety, efficiency, and productivity for construction companies. By using a network of integrated sensors to connect the job site with a proprietary patented wireless mesh network technology, WakeCap can help manage the construction site workforce and reduce schedule risk while also offering huge leaps in safety for the workers. So, hi, Daniel. Welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you here today with us, and we have the chance to discuss a bit about your background in WakeCap and how you're changing the construction industry and digitizing or revolutionizing the way that job sites are operating. So, to begin, can you please tell us a little bit about WakeCap and when did you start this company and what is the main product offering that you're bringing to job sites?
Yeah, so let me answer this. First of all, Ali, thank you for having me. It's always good to speak to others, trying to improve how we build using new technology. So thank you for that. So what WakeCap does is we help companies to improve how construction sites operate, to improve productivity, reduce schedule risk, to improve safety using Internet of Things, ultimately by giving better visibility into how the job site works. So where people are around the job site, how that compares against the plan, all that kind of good stuff. The company started about it was a little bit over 4 years ago. It was an offshoot of the founder's PhD program on the East Coast of the U.S. And there are three: the founder Hassan, and then two other people as well: Ishita, who's a COO, and our chief technology officer as well. I joined myself about 2 years ago. I had been working with another company beforehand, offering engineering services to WakeCap, being the elves in the back room. But I really liked the story, liked what they were doing, and I joined just shy of 2 years ago. And since then, we've had just tremendous success.
Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. So you have different products. I was looking at your website. It seems that there's a suite of IoT products that you're offering to the market. Can you explain a little bit about how the suite of products that you have as part of this IoT package can help with real-time location services, RTLS works, and how is it used to track data basically in job sites?
Yeah, well, I mean, the key thing to keep in mind is we started off wanting to get better information about where people were on the job site, so that you could maybe automate attendance, so no more punch cards or brass pieces, or even foremen writing on iPads when people arrived it's just subject to a lot of error. So automating that, figuring out whether people were in the right place where the plan had them, or right crews, or when you're a GC and you've got a sub or a vendor who's offered up, I don't know, 400, 800 people or 800 worker hours, did they actually deliver it? That's really what we were going for. And so we provide reports on a weekly basis to the construction managers and the supervisors and the superintendents, depending on the site, for cost control, to reduce waste, to improve efficiency, to reduce risk. To make that happen, with any big data company will tell you that you need to have data. Right? We were not happy with any of the pieces of hardware that were out there. We had some experience in IoT, and so we ultimately had to invent our own hardware, which is what we did to be able to get the data to give people the results. So we're not really a hardware company, but we had to do stuff. So with that in mind, what we do is we install, I guess at the heart of it, on the back, just a standard hard hat. We pop off the standard ratchet knob. This one's a 3M. We support a number of others as well, but we pop off the standard little plastic tightener, replace it with this piece of plastic and electronics and antenna and battery. And it's got a couple different things in it. It has, of course, the wireless communications, and I'll talk about that in a sec. It has the ability to locate on the job site and not off the job site. And it's super, super light. It weighs less than 1 ounce, or for comparison, which I think under 20 some odd grams. For comparison, the weight of the brim going from the duckbill to the full surround brim, that weighs more than this piece here. It's battery operated. The battery lasts somewhere between a year and a year and a half, depending on the usage. Okay. On the job site itself, the question was, how do we get location on the job site? How do we get communications across the entire job site, whether you're up high or underground or surrounded by metal? And how do we respect the worker's privacy? We wanted to get a reasonable balance between making the job site work better and respecting the individuals. And so what we came up with is we install a wireless mesh network. So this is what we call an anchor. It's battery operated. You put it in a few places around the job site. And it does two things for you. Number one, it gives you those communications. We put them in, we survey the job site, we make sure that the area is completely covered. And if it's not, we can just move those guys around pretty quickly and easily to make sure you have 100% coverage. And then the second thing it gives you is location. So we locate the workers based on figuring out the signal strength from the hard hat to several of those anchors that are surrounding you. And the nice thing, and those are in known locations. We pull in the blueprint for the job site. We put them as dots on a map. We actually install them. Super easy to do. Just got a bunch of holes here. You can zip tie them, screw them in, bolt them in, weld a little thread on, put a magnet on, attach it to an HVAC system, a whole bunch of different ways of doing that. And by putting those in the right way, then you are also able to get the location down to the range of about 10 yards, kind of in that ballpark, depending on how densely those are located. And for the purposes of productivity and for the purposes of safety, for evacuation or fall detection, things like that, that's pretty much what we need.
Awesome. So that's very exciting. And the hard hat that you just showed, it seems to be very user friendly. The operation and the usage is not going to interfere with the regular day-to-day activity of workers on job sites. The communication is Bluetooth between the node and the gateway, or you're using a different type of communication?
Yeah, sort of. So it uses dead stock Bluetooth hardware. So we are on the Bluetooth bands, which means it's safe, it's unlicensed. We can work in multiple different countries. It has all the benefits of battery life, that you get out of Bluetooth. It has the distance and penetration, like all the benefits that you get out of Bluetooth. We actually run a different protocol on there through our friends at WirePass, which is, it gives you a lot of advantages for an industrial setting that we really need on the construction site. Resilience to a lot of interference. It's better at managing power. The way we do mesh networking is different than how Bluetooth does it, which means that you get this crazy long battery life. I mentioned the year to year and a half on that. I think I missed the battery life on this with standard D batteries is something like 4 years. Wow. It's nuts. But we don't actually have the little, Danish King Bluetooth logo because we do some things that aren't officially Bluetooth branded or get that certification. But for an industrial setting, that's what we need to do. It's also nice. It gives people a lot of confidence that it's a safe technology, which it is.
Can you detect the level, say in a multi-story construction job site? Can you also detect what floor the workers are at and so on and so forth?
Yes, very much so. So we have right now we've got about what's the last number? We have about 27 million hours, worker hours under the hard hat. So we've had to deal with a lot of. I know it's an indirect answer to your question. I'll answer that in a sec. The short answer is yes. But we've had to deal with a lot of these problems or a lot of these questions, let's say, to get to those 27 million hours and like 27, 28,000 workers, whatever it is. And how we do that in a lot of these other things. But how we do that for the levels is, like I said, we pull in the blueprints, whether it's a big horizontal project or a big vertical project or a densely packed area like a power plant or an oil refinery. We put in multiple levels. We georeference them. We say what height each of those levels of the blueprint are at. And then on each level, we put up a bunch of these anchors. And we can sense whether or not the anchors that are closest to you are the ones that kind of indicate what floor you're on. We've tried a bunch of different things. We tried putting pressure barometer into the hard hat piece, pressure-based altitude rather, and decided there's so much variation just because of weather that was not a reliable way of doing it, and also it was chewing up battery. So we took that out. But the short answer is yes, we do that.
Perfect. So, okay, so this is in a nutshell, in a system that can be easily deployed to locate workers on job site, and as you mentioned, they can tag them based on their, I don't know, it's a subcontractor or different types of activities to be able to monitor and subsegment that kind of data. And your clients, the general contractors or subcontractors who are using this, may have different pain points. Either it's efficiency, lack of data, productivity, safety concerns. What do you find is the main value proposition of getting a system like WakeCap installed on a job site for contractors?
Productivity and safety. Those are the two main categories. Pricing safety is always difficult. I can't say, other than OSHA fine, or safety fines, which is not really the only. If you're already getting to the point where you have fines, then things are much more wrong than just a hard hat can solve. So the ROI on that is squishier, but also very important, especially if we're working with oil and gas, where there are serious explosion concerns and evacuations that we need to assist with. The biggest reason that general contractors buy us, or the biggest reason that owners now are starting to mandate us in their RFQs and equivalents, is about improving. It usually comes that there is a particular productivity problem that they have experienced and they want to solve, right? And by getting people on the site connected up with this, we solve the first problem. And then later on, they find out, well, hold on a second. If we can slice and dice the data differently, then you can actually solve these other 3 or 4 problems. Right? So simple things like, where is my crew compared to where I planned? Like how much time? Here's a good example. How much time does my crew spend in the northeast corner of the 30th floor where they've been allocated for that day? And what percentage of their time do they take to get up there? Then the people on the site, once they have a score, like they say, it turns out they spend 75% of their time or 60% of their time in that area. And then the CMs or the foreman or whoever will adjust the site. Well, did it work? Unless you've got something like WakeCap, it's very difficult to tell. Right? We can tell you that if you put in faster hoists, it changed the percentage of time you got to spend there. If you, there was one site where there was something blocking one of the hoist doors that was causing workers to have to go to the floor above or below to get on. And on the way back, they would have to do the opposite. And that slowed things down, right? You got crews where the foreman is spending a significant amount of time away from their crew. And all you can see is that their productivity is going down, but you're not sure why. That came up where it was a follow-on task where someone said, all right, in our weekly meeting where we get the reports from WakeCap, we notice from other metrics that their output, their productivity is going down. Can you help us figure out why? And that's what we did. And we found out that there was a high correlation between the foreman was either the crew was on the ground and they were up in the work area, or vice versa. And for the crews where the foreman was spending most of their time with the crew, the productivity matched up. So it's kind of like a scorecard for all those other changes. And then also it gives you a much, over time you accumulate this information, and then it's a much clearer report of what you can expect for time and output. So it it reduces your schedule risk on the current job, and then it also improves your ability to bid on subsequent jobs as a GC.
So no, thanks, Daniel. That's awesome, actually, to hear. That the productivity can be increased that much by using a set of actually sensors that can be installed on hard hats and nodes that can be installed on the job site. And on the safety, you mentioned that the value proposition is not as clear as the productivity, but obviously that's another aspect of these sensors, that it can detect the like fall, workers falling. You can get an alert and to the superintendent that there's something happening here, so that they can quickly attend to that. When you talk about safety, and there are protocols that job sites have to follow, and it's pretty strict, do you see the safety side will grow in the future, and the value proposition may be more visible as regulatory bodies would accept monitoring those kinds of activities or incidents using sensors?
Yes, is the short story. We have seen, so governments around the world are putting into place, or have put in place, various safety things. So, for example, OSHA has this 6-foot rule where if it's over, if you're over a certain height, you have to be wearing a harness, or if you're on if you're above the ground by a certain height, you have to wear it. And then if you fall, it has to be no more than a 6-foot fall. Okay. Well, how do you measure that? Right? You can measure it with a rope. Right? You obviously don't want to toss someone over the side to see if it worked. That's a little bit crazy. But one of the things we're working on, because we've got the motion sensor in the hard hat, is, can we measure a fall that's bigger than 6 feet? Right? So we can measure an amount of free fall. We can measure impact. Right? So if there's something been hit, we can also use it. The other thing we use the motion sensor for, that's a lot more subtle, is, are you wearing the hard hat? So on a lot of job sites, it's not as big of a problem in North America. People kind of gotten the message, but in the Middle East, we've got several construction sites in Dubai, in UAE, in Riyadh, elsewhere in Saudi Arabia, a few other places around the world. They don't wear the hard hats as much, right? Or they're a little bit more lax in that. And so we have built into the motion sensor, we've got kind of a sliding 10-minute window. And so if there's not regular human motion of some kind in that window, we'll mark it as inactive. And so when you see the dot, you can either view it as dots on a map, and ones where they're active are green, and where the inactive is red. Right? Or you can get lists of what are the inactive workers, right? So the concept of, are you wearing your hard hat, or is it on the bench beside you instead of where it should be protecting your head? That's important, and that's something we can measure. And honestly, a lot of the mature companies are doing that, and the evacuation assistance, because they want to help their people, they want to support their people, and they go well beyond the local health and safety requirements.
Awesome. And so the two aspects, productivity and safety, they have different approaches from the value proposition perspective. Productivity is more of a concern for the top management and the company. Safety can directly touch the workers themselves, and could be an important aspect of what they're basically getting out of using the system. But at the same time, it involves tracking every move that they have on the job site. And this is, from the privacy perspective, could be a concern. Have you heard any feedback from that side of things? And how do you address the privacy concerns that workers may have in terms of tracking every activity that they have during the day?
Yeah, well, this is the elephant in the room with tracking, right? This is the thing that have I heard of it? Only in roughly 100% of the conversations, right? Yes, of course. It comes up every single time, and I actively seek out discussions with uh, um, either union leaders or workers or individuals, and they come in with their fangs bared and their hackles up, and we talk about things, and now we're going for something which we loosely call the reasonableness test. Okay, um, if I say to someone on a job site, "When did you arrive today, and when did you leave?" No one's going to say, "Hey, that's private, man." Right? It's like that's how we pay you, right? If I say to someone, "Hey, we had you allocated to work in this section. Are you over there right now?" You're not going to say, "Hey, where I work is my business." Like obviously, that's the job of the foreman. It's the job of the CM, or the whoever it is on the job site or the site engineer to deploy people in the right way. And so that's reasonable to say, "Hey, where are you?" Right? We have no microphone, we have no camera. Um, our goal, I would not phrase it as we track every movement, because that's not really what we do. Down to a granularity of, are you moving or are you not? Are you in this zone down to about 30 feet, 10 yards, give or take? That we do. We're not watching your every move. We are trying to do something that's reasonable. And then to back that up, when literally, I was involved in the decision of which wireless technology to go with, and there are many, many, many out there. We wanted something. We built privacy into the decision matrix, from day one, like literally on the first day when we're listing these things. We wanted something that would work and that would connect. And by the way, I didn't mention, like, all these mesh devices. There's one gateway computer, and that speaks out to the internet, right? And that's how we get our. We'll have a couple for redundancy, but that's how we do it. Fine. But what we didn't want was to be able to track people off the job site. Okay, so there's no GPS, there's no location tracking, there's no way for us to track workers on the way home off the job site. We think that's reasonable, right? And we don't track people until they're on the job site. Aside from the fact that GPS isn't going to work in a metal structure, it also makes it just a little bit too tempting, in sometimes, to say we're going to, after the fact, go back and figure out where you were, and that's not okay. So when I have these discussions with labor leaders and with individuals where there's some reluctance to adopt this kind of stuff, and we talk about this reasonableness, we talk about what we're tracking, we talk about how this ties in, and then, by the way, not really on the privacy thing, but also on the what's good for the worker aspect. If I can save a foreman a couple hours of reconciling job sheets at the end of every week, that's good for them. If I can save them waiting 15 minutes in line to get in, instead of having to tap in or sign in, because it's a big site with a couple thousand people, that's good for them too.
Perfect. Thanks, Daniel. To add us that elephant in the room sort of question. You mentioned something at the beginning that WakeCap is not a hardware company, and that takes me to a question I have about this market. The market of IoT in general in the construction industry is growing rapidly. There are many IoT companies out there for developing different types of sensors for tracking different things, from equipment tracking, people tracking, ambient conditions, and so on and so forth. And in comparison with other companies who are trying to offer similar products, how do you differentiate yourself? Whether it's from the hardware side, software side, and how do you ensure that you are staying competitive in this crowded market?
Yeah. So IoT is a very large field, obviously, and I mean, immediately we're going to separate us out from companies that do concrete sensors and curing concrete, or we're a little bit different from some of the tools companies, in a sense where they're starting to put their devices, their like drills and saws and like all the machinery on a network. I actually see us working with them over time. In the same way that now you don't care what Ethernet you plug your computer into. You don't care whether the Wi-Fi base station was made by your computer's company or someone else's. It just, there are standards. So I see there are some parallel companies where I think we're going to ultimately move towards the base level of communications will be standardized for certain applications. So maybe your tools and your personnel tracking will be on the same style of network. Right? I can see that happening over the years, and then you start to get some interesting co-opetition effects where you could have us and the equipment makers kind of pairing up to figure out what's the time on tool. You know, who was the last person using a tool and where is it? Right? So that's things that are sort of IoT and in the same space, but not directly competitive. Fine. There are some other companies that are using IoT for personnel tracking. I like them. I respect them. They're smart people. We're going to kick their backsides. Right? There's no question. Right? For lots of different reasons. Starting with if you are tracking personnel, let's start from where we want to be. We want to be able to trust that if I'm using this for payroll, the data is right. If I'm trusting this for my personnel tracking, it's right. If I'm calling a vendor on the carpet because they've only supplied 400 people instead of 800 people, which is an actual example. We have one of our customers have this argument with one of their subs. It was the project director in Dubai. That's what we want. You need to trust the data. So how do you trust the data? First of all, they have to be wearing the device, right? If I'm wearing a little thing that I attach to my vest or to my belt, they're going to forget it in the truck. They're going to forget it at home. It's going to go through the laundry. For a hard hat, if you don't have your hard hat on, you're not working that day. Period. Right? It also helps. There are some subtleties around this, like the fact that it's sort of away from the body. Right? Our bodies are really good at blocking radio signal, even simple stuff like Bluetooth, right? And so the fact that it's up there makes it the data gets through where it doesn't that you're with something that you're wearing on your chest. It's weatherproof. It's waterproof. We have it works with intrinsic safety, like with blast certification. There's a lot of that goes on. The fact that we're battery operated, the fact that we have an over year-long battery life. Batteries are not a sexy topic. They really, really aren't, right? But they absolutely are the Achilles heel of most IoT projects, right? If I have to have a bunch of chargers on site, or if I'm counting on my workers to charge their devices, or there's some hard hats where you have to charge it far, far too frequently. I don't care how good your hardware is. If it has no power, if it has no battery, it's dead. It doesn't work, right? So for all these reasons, most of our competitors fall off just on the battery piece, on the not forgetting the device, the ease of use. There's no training. I think you mentioned this earlier. For the average worker, the training is put the hard hat on. That's it, right? So you put all these together, and all of our competitors ultimately fall off with one of those questions. The one thing I would say is it's a big problem. How do you track worldwide, right? There's give or take, let's say 40% of the expense of a project is on labor. Could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower, depending on the location. It's a big problem to go after. And I think that overall, we're competing against this, against the previous solutions rather than against each other. And so I'm looking forward to really breaking through into the bigger market to have most of the GCs and owners using some kind of automated personnel workforce tracking on the construction site.
Yeah, great point, Daniel. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, if for our listeners, if there's a company out there who's interested to get us started with WakeCap and start using the sensor suite and the software suite, maybe on one job site and see how it goes, what do they need to get us started, and how they can basically reach out to you?
Yeah, there are a few different ways. Obviously, our website is WakeCap, WakeCap.com. Well, I'm based in the U.S. I'm in San Francisco. I'm the Vice President of North America, so I cover U.S. and Canada. And then we're looking at a couple of projects into Mexico as well. You can email us. I'm Daniel@WakeCap.com. Or come through the website, and if you're in a different part of the world, then we'll route you to the right people.
Okay, and is that decision making or process is they can start with one project to begin, and with minimum investment and see how it goes, and they can scale across all of their projects? And how does that process look like for them?
Yeah. So first of all, we tend to work. It tends to work best working directly with the GC. Right. That's what I say, because they're there for the life of a project, and that's really where you get the benefit out of it. We work with a lot of clients and owners who mandate it to the GC, so it's kind of that pairing. That's number one. Number two, we make it very easy to get on board. Of course, just about everybody has some kind of a pilot or trial project where they try it out on a site with a subset of the workers, whether it's 50 workers, 60 workers, some relatively small number like that. See how it works, prove it out, just pass the initial sniff test, show that we're not just a shiny object, we actually provide actionable results that make your job site work better and with measurable benefits on the productivity side. And then on an ongoing basis, we tend to charge per active worker per month. Companies at this stage are a little bit reluctant to get on board and do like an enterprise license. So it's initial pilot. We'll do a project-based pricing per active worker per month, and it goes up and down with the histogram of people, workers on the site. And then we can move up to either hardware purchase or enterprise-wide license or anything along those lines.
Okay, that's actually very attractive. So as they scale, they basically use more sensors and basically pay more licensing fee, which is very I think attractive business model for both sides. So I guess that's all the questions we had from our side. Is there any additional comment that you'd like to share with the audience of this podcast?
It's actually a pretty good set of questions, to be honest. I mean, you covered the basics. It's one of those things. I've seen a few significant. I've been around for a few, to use an engineering term, step changes in various different industries. I've been in mobile phone technology for a lot of years, and I've seen a few and lived through a couple big changes. So going from like flip phones to smartphones was a large change in how things worked. And from paper processes to digital processes, from these big changes. And I think we're going through that right now in generally with construction technology and specifically with personnel tracking, where there's a lot of reluctance. There's certainly a generation of people coming up where they're more comfortable with technology and how it can be used, and so there's a general technophilia there. But I think that over the next year or two, I would love for your listeners to try it out to see that, yeah, actually, it does make things work better. Right? This is the kind of thing where they're going to look back on it and say, "Wow, we were doing this manually? Really? Why? Right? This is so much better. It catches problems. It catches the 6 sources of waste or 8 sources of waste, or there are various models around that in construction. This does so much of a better job without all the manual handling. I can't believe we did that, and I'm really hoping that your listeners get in touch and give us a shot and help us show you that we can make the construction site work better.
Right on, Daniel. Thanks so much for your feedback and sharing the story of WakeCap with us and how you are changing and revolutionizing job sites. It was great chatting with you, and thank you again for joining us in this podcast.
Thank you, Ali. It's a pleasure joining you. Pleasure talking with you.